My name is Helen Benussi and my mentor is
Diane Benussi.
I started out my career as an accountant, worked for the big firms, one large firm for many, many years, went abroad to Switzerland and had a child, and for personal reasons I had to return back to England. And I came back to England, and it was difficult being a single mum, working full time. There was no way to get promoted. I wasn't prepared to do the long hours that it needed, and I hadn't got the time to do the long hours, and as long as I wasn't going to be doing those, I wasn't going to go anywhere. So I just decided that really I was really just floating along, not really doing anything, being a mum, and that was unfortunately the way it works when you have to look after your career and your child. You don't get much more than that. And then I think you had a moment which coincided with my lifestyle change.
I was worried about succession planning, and one of my friends, who's a friend we've known for a long time, said, have you thought about Helen coming into your business? And without really much thought, I phoned you up and I said, have you ever thought about coming and working at Benussi & Co? Being a solicitor and coming and working at Benussi & Co. What would you feel about that? And you just said yes. And that was the only conversation we really had about it.
And that was because I was at a crossroads in my career. I wasn't going anywhere. My daughter was going to start secondary school in a couple of years, and I thought it would be a really good opportunity to start fresh.
Yes.
So I didn't fancy doing the law degree very much. The thought of studying again, but it had to be done. And I'm glad I did it.
And it was tough. It was very tough for
very
you.
Tough.
And it was
with no support at home.
Yes.
Very tough. But, you know.
But I was a single mom, and I think that to an extent it makes you tougher. You have to be, because you've got no one supporting you, and you just have to get on with it. But the joy has been that you have come in, and in the early days you were a bit unsure about what you were doing, and then just suddenly you just got into your stride, and it's been wonderful to watch, because I've spent 40 years building the business. You've come into it, picked it up and shaken it and done all the things that accountants do, cut costs and all those sort of things, and you keep telling me, well, that's what accountants do, Mom. And
tell you off for spending money.
Yeah, so it's been good, but our reflection and our business is about employing lots and lots of women. We have employed men in the past. We don't have any at the moment, but we find that our business works. Why does it work?
Mainly because I would say my experience, your experience as working mums, most of the girls that are in the office are mums. I call them girls, are mums, and we're very sympathetic to that. And I bring my background of working for a very large firm where we weren't supported. I wasn't supported very much as a mum, and I brought that into the firm to try and support the mums and give them the flexibility and the encouragement that they can still work and still be mums.
Yes, and my ethos of the firm has always been that people come to work for but a few hours, and at the end of that time they go home 5:30. I walk through the office and ask why they're still there, if anyone's still there. It's not very often that anyone is there, but we definitely do not have a long hours culture. We have a culture of being the employer for a short period of the day, and I certainly objected very strongly to the suggestion that anyone was going to have contact at home on their Blackberries. I had someone came along and said, do I get a Blackberry? And I said, what for? And she said, well, for emails out of the office. And I said, if you're out of the office, you're not on email. We don't need to contact you. And it is a different feeling, because we know how difficult it is to be a mother, a single mother.
And a wife.
And an employee, yeah. And so we look around us, and what do we see in the law? There are very few women that have got to the heights, and the vast majority of women that I know that are successful run their own businesses because they've opted out of the big corporate culture because it's just not a thing you can do. I think that there are lots of challenges in life, and having my daughter in the middle of my final year at university was a bit of a challenge for me. I was supported by the Dean of the faculty who said, no, you can't have a year off, you'll never finish it with a baby in arms. And I thought he was the most horrible man under the sun. He said, believe me, I've got 5 children. And he was right. My baby was 6 months old when I went to my graduation. So that was a challenge. And what did I discover? That you're on your own, mate. You've got to do everything on your own. And you've just got to be better. And support groups and all that sort of stuff doesn't really exist. You just got to have a determination, and you've just got to be better. And I don't think there's any magic formula. You don't do anything other than get on with it, do you? And you've had to do exactly the same.
I think if you don't have reliance, you just get on with it. Don't rely on anyone and just get on with it.
Yeah. You come into the world alone, you go out of it alone, and along the way, if anyone helps you, well, that's a bonus.
I was talking to a very good friend of mine a couple of weeks ago who's got 3 young boys, and I said, how do you manage? How are you still working? And she said, if my husband wasn't self-employed, I couldn't, because he carries burden and he works at home.
So we've had lots of... Do you know what? You don't remember the bad things, do you? You just carry on. There have been lots and lots of horrible things that happen.
Well, you've had to deal with a lot of I think you've not struggled, but you've had to push your way through the lawyers of Birmingham to show them that you're a serious lawyer, and you've had to. Well, you've made some enemies along the way, I suppose, or they've made enemies with you because they didn't like you because you were female, you were feisty. I remember going to tennis club 10 years ago and you saying, I can't go down there. There was a group of 10 male lawyers and they just, I think I went up to them and said, you can stop bad-mouthing her. You know, those are the impressions that I've had of your career. You've always been sort of the only woman out there fighting all the male lawyers, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but that's how it is. I think women lawyers are seen very much as, if you're a women lawyer, you're tough. There's no sort of
network. Well, there is a bit of a network now because there are women coming through. Now. But when I was in my articles, I remember my boss saying to me, I'll never have a woman partner. And I was quite shocked at that point. And I remember another man who was in one of the big firms saying, basically, oh, pop it, don't get so upset. Women, you can't really do this job. And I was just absolutely aghast. That was at a time when nearly half of the people at university were females, and the attitude amongst the senior males was, well, tough luck. They will fade away. They're not going to be a challenge. Both of those men have subsequently had a moment and apologised for their behaviour and said, we didn't understand how the world was changing, but it hasn't changed that much. The women still aren't coming through, and we are. I remember when I first set up my first business with a female partner, I could see people in the cars opposite our new building with our brilliant new brass plate that we'd put up, and they were going, it's 2 women, as if we'd got 2 heads. And someone said to us, someone, I think it was a lawyer, we phoned up about our lease, and he said, oh, I thought you were lesbian dress designers. And that was the sort of attitude to having 2 women running a business together. It was just a big joke, and I think everybody waited for us to fail. It's
very, I would say the legal world is very different. That's one of the things I first noticed when I came into Mum's practice, was that lawyers are very, very different people to accountants, which is what I'd spent most of my life networking with. And to see the difference in the people was very hard to work with, and then to start networking with lawyers was just, they're just very different people. I can't really explain it. I suppose they're just more serious. The conversations you have are slightly more serious. Whereas, and so when I first came into it, there was a lot of animosity, I think, between people, and particularly female lawyers, and you constantly hear people saying, oh, not Benussis and not so-and-so, and I used to think, what is all this animosity? But definitely in the last few years that has changed. It made me, I'd heard all this lawyers, arguing with each other, and it made me want to understand why they do it, and I suppose to try and make friends and understand what it is all about. And it's definitely changed in the last couple of years. The people that you were in fierce competition with when you were 10 years ago are not necessarily still around and practicing, but the women that I'm now practicing with, we have networking groups. I go out for lunch and people see us together, and you can see them thinking, oh, it wouldn't have happened. From what I've heard of your career, it just wouldn't have happened. Women were always seen as in competition, and now I think it's very different. You've got your new ex-presidents, females, networking group, and there seems to be a lot more female legal networking groups out there, and we're all very much at one with each other now. That's how I see it differently.
Yes, I don't think I had time to network with females, female lawyers. I was running my own firm, so my natural peer group were male lawyers, basically. And yes, I knew a lot of them on the Law Society Council and that sort of thing, but you've got a different sort of environment, I hope. I hope it's different for you. I hope that there is more support. And in fact, when I was quite early in practice, I set up the Birmingham Solicitors Family Law Association. There was one in London, Solicitors Family Law Association, so that lawyers that were dealing with family law had a peer group, because there was understood to be a huge strain in doing the work we do, because we're dealing with very distressed people all of the time. And counsellors and people like that said to us, you've got to have people you can talk to, because you're sucking up people's depression. They come in and they unload all their unhappiness, all their misery. And certainly in my years running Benussi & Co, I used to talk to all the new clients. And they used to cascade all their misery on me. And sometimes it just used to get unbearable. So the Solicitors Family Law Association was set up with a code of conduct that the solicitors would be working in a different way towards their clients and to one another, to take out some of the huge conflicts that occurred in matrimonial matters. And I have to say, most of those conflicts were caused by the lawyers writing self-serving correspondence for their clients, because the clients wanted to have someone shouting for them, and they used to write letters saying, your client is this, your client is that, ours is Snow White. And the Solicitors Family Law Association was about changing that, and I think that did change for a long time. It's now an adjunct of the Law Society, and I don't know whether it's the same sort of organisation, but certainly in the beginning it was a great relief to meet people that did the same job as us, because family law was looked upon as, the bottom of the pile. People used to look at us with sort of sympathy. Oh, you do divorce, how awful. Nowadays everybody thinks it's a hot topic for dinner parties, not about the clients but about what's going on, and what people spend their money on, and all of those things that happen are deemed to be interesting, because it's a bit like having a gossip columnist with you who's no names, but they always want to talk about divorce, don't they?
Yes. I see a more protective environment where women are allowed to do what they want, be mothers and not get criticised, but still be able to go up the ranks.
But we actually have a almost unique view on how society is evolving.
Yes,
and that's one of the things
society.
that over the years I've seen, because you actually see things changing from the way people talk about their lives. And 10, 15 years later, a sociologist used to publish a paper, and we used to think, well, we knew that years ago. We've seen society changing. One of the big shocks, I think, is that marriage hasn't changed that much, and that the huge controlling aspect of marriage, where money is the controlling thing, is still continuing. And when we talk to professionals, professional women can't believe that it's still the case that most women have absolutely no money in their own control, and that still happens. And the richer the people are, the less money the wife seems to have. She doesn't seem to have anything. So society hasn't changed. Maybe our lives are changing because professional women have their own money.
Yes, I think that is the main difference. And that gives them the confidence to progress, and there seem to be more opportunities as well, I think. It's not just partner or nothing. There are several different tiers to get to partner now, and I think people are appreciative of that.
Yes.
And they don't seem to get cut off if they leave to go and have a baby. They can carry on. Certainly my experience of people is that they come back and carry on.
Come back after their children, yes.
And they don't just get dropped, which I think is how it was 20 years ago, starting again.
Yes.
That's my perception of it.
We're looking for people with experience and with rather more personality, so that they can be listening to people's problems and then parking them and getting on with the legal stuff, because people don't have anyone else to talk to. They don't have anyone to go and explain their matrimonial difficulties with. There isn't the backup of church and things like that there used to be 50 years ago. It's gone, and they come and tell us stuff that they've never told anyone else. And sometimes it's very, very distressing stuff, because people are talking about their lives, but in a way that reflects back into how we run our practice, doesn't it? I hope. We do manage on the basis of cake, don't we? That's cake. Our management tool, cake. There's always cake in our office, and there's always someone. Well, most of them are on a diet, aren't they?
Yes. Counterproductive.
Yes, absolutely.
I suppose I hope it'll even out across the entire law, not just family where we sit, but that there'll be more female representation across all of it, even the male-dominated ones, which are the corporate, again, because of the hours, I know that. It would just be nice to see more balance of men and women lawyers, especially at the top. I know that no, I won't say that.
In the law, years and years ago, when I was doing my training contract, there were criteria of how you did corrections of documents, and these were company documents. So I've forgotten the order now. Was it red pen first? So the first alterations were done in red, then green. I think it there was another colour, brown. But basically you could have 3 corrections. So there was a travelling copy of the document that was moved across. And I remember my boss saying to me, if you've had to do it more than twice, if you got beyond green, you're no bloody good. And now, because they've got word processors, and because they've got 400-page documents, and because they've got to stay up all night correcting them, the testosterone is fed into this great big, oh, we've got to do the deal on Christmas Eve at midnight. And that has just blocked women out of the law. But most of it is not necessary. Most of it is just a game.
But I do think that the email and external use of IT has helped women, because we can leave the office, go home. I know it's not perfect, but we can leave the office, go home, do our mum duties, do our wife duties, and then pick up anything that we might have missed. So that feeling of guilt that we've left on time is dissipated because you're catching up with emails. I know it's not it's not the way anyone else would do it, but it's the only way we can do it. That's still what I do. So I suppose that's the difference. It has changed. It's less staying in the office and more flexible working, which, you know.
We're all too instant and too reactive. And if everybody stopped, I used to say years ago, when you have a document you need to deal with, read it before you go home. When you come in the morning, you'll have slept on it and you'll know exactly how you want to respond. But now, it's you read the document, you start immediately typing away. There is no time for thought. So now that I'm at the end of my career, I'd say reflection is the greatest thing that you can do. Reflect on things, not be instant. But the law, how's it going? It's going, isn't it? It's just evolving. And how do you find it?
I definitely see a change, and I think it's changed for the better. It doesn't feel forced, it feels natural. Things are happening, and it just feels like a better legal place to be than it was 20 years ago, certainly.
That's good. I'm glad you see that.
When I first came into Benussi & Co., although I'd done the law degree and I'd done management at university and I felt equipped to look after the business, there were areas of it that I just hadn't a clue. And at the start, having to ask, I think I fought my way through them on my own for a bit. And I think you let me. And then it came times where I would have to ask you, how do we do this? And I think that's been the mentoring role that you've given me. It's all very well walking into a place with the qualifications, but you need the tools and everything that goes with it, and that's not something you can just learn. You've got to be taught that. So as a mentor, you've taught me the simple things like walk through the office every morning, say hello to everyone. Silly little things, but that's a mentoring thing, and that's what you give me. I mean, we talk every morning on the way to work to start the day off, every night on the way home to finish the day off, and I'm always talking you through what I've learned at work that day. And sometimes I'll say to you, I don't want you to tell me what to do, I'm just sort of telling you what I've learned today. But it's a constant learning, isn't it? And I sometimes think you're still learning, just from things that people, you say to me, do we do that? I said, well, that's what people expect. But as a mentor, I think you'll always be mentoring. I don't think you ever stop. Running a business, being a lawyer, it's constantly changing, and I learn something from you every day, and I ask you every day something new. How do we do this? How do you do that? I've said to you so many times, I don't know how you did it on your own. I mean, I've got you to mentor me, but you never had anyone in the business, and that's, hard, very hard.
It's amazing I'm still here, isn't it?
Well.